Why has Jordan Peterson become an alpha role model to thousands of men all over the world? And what lessons can you and I learn to help us become more dominant, powerful men that women are naturally attracted to? Being a clinical psychologist professor at the University of Toronto and the author of the recent bestseller 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos, Jordan Peterson first entered the public light in 2016 when he objected to compelled speech legislation in Canada that made headlines. From the constant watering down of masculinity by our social narratives and consumer culture that has created pussified cowards, to the wrath of misguided, frustrated, angry young men, to even the abuse of power by men with status and influence, and even a president in office who states he grabs women by the pussy. And this is where Jordan Peterson comes in.
Jordan Peterson, you've said that men need to, quote, grow the hell up. Tell me why.
Well, because there's nothing uglier than an old infant. There's nothing good about it. People who don't grow up don't find the sort of meaning in their life that sustains them through difficult times, and they're certain to encounter difficult times. And they're left bitter and resentful and without purpose and adrift and hostile and resentful and vengeful and arrogant and deceitful and of no use to themselves and of no use to anyone else and no partner for a woman, and there's nothing in it that's good.
So you say, I mean, that sounds pretty bad. You're saying there's a crisis.
Dealing out tough love on YouTube has young men who desperately crave alpha male role models flocking to his YouTube channel.
So maybe you could sort yourself out so that you wanted nothing but the good. And then maybe you could help make that manifest in the world. And maybe we wouldn't have all these terrible problems then.
So masculinity, I mean, what do you do about it?
You help people understand why it's necessary and important for them to grow up and adopt responsibility. Why that isn't a shake your finger and get your act together sort of thing. Why it's more like a delineation of the kind of destiny that makes life worth living. I've been telling young men, but it's not, I wasn't specifically aiming this message at young men to begin with. It just kind of turned out that way.
Rule number 1, stand up straight with your shoulders back. I love that one as the first one because when I first started doing stand-up, I used to see a lot of guys hunched over the mic.
Yeah.
Really bad posture, well-known comics. And I always remember thinking, you got to stand up straight.
Yeah, well, you've got good posture. Just now.
I guess something happened.
Yeah, you do. So.
I'm Ricky Royal, America's elite attraction coach. Now, if you're watching this, you're probably like the thousands of other badasses in our community who want to become the most attractive version of themselves by working on their charm, charisma, and confidence daily. Because a little secret that the guys in our tribe know is women's attention naturally gravitates toward men who lean into their edge daily. Zero chasing required. So with that being said, let's crack into this Jordan Peterson, Kathy Newman interview and see the gold nuggets that we can take from this to become more attractive, dominant men.
What's in it for the women, though?
Well, what sort of partner do you want? Do you want an overgrown child? Or do you want someone to contend with that's going to help you and that you can rely on?
Women have some sort of duty to sort of help fix the crisis of masculinity.
It depends on what they want. No, I mean, it's exactly how I laid it out. Like, women deeply want men who are competent and powerful. And I don't mean power in that they can exert tyrannical control over others. That's not power. That's just corruption. Power is competence.
So in this clip, Jordan breaks down the benefits of becoming a powerful man and how it actually makes you rise to the top for mate selection with women. He also goes into what power is and what it's not. Most guys I see that go into the dating community usually go there because they've been hurt from a relationship and they're trying to take control of their dating life. But the big mistake that they make is they confuse power and control with tyrannically trying to control others, which is not power, it's just corruption. As Jordan Peterson puts it, power is confidence. So when you work on yourself to become the most attractive version of yourself, your charm, your charisma, your confidence, and your influence with people grow, which is why more and more women are going to find you more attractive the more you do it. When you have value, you have options. And when you have options, you have control of your dating life. So if it doesn't work out with one girl, that's okay. You don't need her to complete you. You have other options out there that are available to you to make different decisions in your dating life.
Why in the world would you not want a competent partner? Well, I know why, actually. You can't dominate a competent partner. So
you're
if you
saying
want
women
domination,
want to dominate. Is that what you're saying?
no, I'd say women who have had their relationships impaired, their relationships with men impaired, and who are afraid of such relationships will settle for a weak partner because they can dominate them. But it's a suboptimal solution.
Do you
It
think
does
that's
no
what a
one
lot of
any
women are
good.
doing?
I think there's a substantial minority of women who do that. And I think it's very bad for them. They're very unhappy. It's very bad for their partners, although the partners get the advantage of not having to take any responsibility.
But what gives you the right to say that? I mean, maybe that's how women want their relationships, those women. I mean, you're making these vast generalizations.
I'm a clinical psychologist.
Right, so you're saying you've done your research and women are unhappy dominating men.
I didn't say they were unhappy dominating men. I said it was a bad long-term solution.
Okay, you said it was
It's not
making
the
them
same
miserable.
thing. Yes, it is. And it depends on the time frame. I mean, there's intense pleasure in momentary domination. That's why people do it all the time. But it's no formula for a successful long-term relationship. That's reciprocal, right? Any long-term relationship is reciprocal, virtually by definition. So
in this clip, Jordan Peterson breaks down mating strategies, and one in particular, which is a negative mating strategy, is when one mate tries to dominate over the other mate. Now, why does this happen in relationships? Well, most of the times it's because of fears, insecurities, or past trauma that have leaked into the relationship, and you're projecting them onto your relationship. So instead of working on themselves, most people tend to try to manipulate or dominate their partner so they feel safe in the relationship, which is nasty and toxic behavior. So instead, what you should do as you're becoming a more high caliber man is look for ways to heal your old wounds and take care of your own fears and insecurities so you don't vent them into your relationship. Like he says, the quote he said is, even though there can be intense pleasure in momentarily dominating, it's a suboptimal solution. And a successful relationship, by definition, is reciprocal, meaning give and take. You know, if you even take the word relationship, it has the word relate in it. You're relating to people, you're sharing with people. You know, you're playing a co-op game together, you're on the same team, so you have to work to get together. A lot of people, you know, in the low vibration kind of relationships tend to play power games, but power games isn't going to create love. It's not going to be a long, successful strategy if you want to be in that relationship with that person.
there's this idea that hierarchical structures are a sociological construct of the Western patriarchy. And that is so untrue that it's almost unbelievable. And I use the lobster as an example because the lobster, we divulged from lobsters in evolutionary history about 350 million years ago, common ancestor. And lobsters exist in hierarchies, and they have a nervous system attuned to the hierarchy. And that nervous system runs on serotonin, just like our nervous systems do. And the nervous system of the lobster and of the human being is so similar that antidepressants work on lobsters. And it's part of my attempt to demonstrate that the idea of hierarchy has absolutely nothing to do with sociocultural construction, which it doesn't.
So based on his research, what he's saying here is that our nervous system is actually wired to give us a reward the more we grow and achieve. And as we grow and achieve, the more power and status we have, which is not only good for us, but it's also good for society. Which is why here at Attractions, which we talk about, an attractive man is a man on a purpose in life. As high caliber men, biologically, we know that we're going to be rewarded by our long-term life strategy of being on our purpose rather than succumbing to the short-term life strategy of just living for constant instant gratification. And we know by staying on that purpose, we are developing the skills that we need to get what we want out of life and live life on our terms. So what did we learn here? Well, number one, we learned about power and how power isn't trying to be tyrannical or corrupt, but it's actually being competent so that you're a more desirable mate for women. Number two, we learned about mating strategies and how control and dominance, though in the short term can be desirable, in the long term, they don't make long-term success for relationships, and rather relationships need to be reciprocal. Number three, we learned about status and how our nervous system is actually wired to our social hierarchy. So the more we achieve, the more we grow, the more status, the more power we have, the more the feel-good chemicals in our brain are released, making us more relaxed, more carefree, more happy, which makes us more attractive to women. And if you want more elite attraction content on how to release the feel-good chemicals in a woman's brain like serotonin and dopamine that make her more attracted to you, you're going to want to get our free training course that's normally $300, but we're giving it away free today to the first 100 people to download it. And this will be the 5 laws of attraction. Now, the only requirement that I ask of you is that you use these powers for good. I'm Ricky Royal, signing off. Live dangerously, Spartan. Peace.